Hey everybody, on this Tuesday, the 13th of February, we find ourselves just on the brink of the Lenten season. Ash Wednesday's tomorrow. And so what we find today is Jesus with his disciples in a boat. They get back in a boat and the disciples start to looking around and they start to worry because they realize that they didn't bring enough bread for their journey. They didn't bring enough for them to survive along the way. And Jesus, he's kind of sleepy, but then he immediately tells them, beware, watch out and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And to the disciples, they think that he's just chastising them for not having enough bread. But what Jesus is saying, and he tries to open this up for them, is saying, don't you remember when I fed the 5,000, how much was left over? And they told him. And then in the 4,000, how much was left over? What Jesus is trying to let them see is that they don't live by the bread alone. And that what the Pharisees have done and what they've done in their religious practice is that they have built themselves up and studied the law to the letter so that they can depend on their own understanding of these things and not depend on God. What Jesus is trying to show his disciples is that he is the one who is going to feed their every need. He is the one who is going to show them the way, and that they don't have to figure it out for themselves, but look to him, pray to him, ask him for what they need. And I think this is all too timely of a message for myself, maybe for you too. That there's so many things in this world that I want to control by my own self-sufficiency. That I want to learn it well enough so that I can say I've mastered it, or that I can say I know this and I don't need anything else, even God. Or at least that's what I say in a roundabout way. I don't necessarily say that to myself, but it's the way that I act sometimes. And that's hard to admit. That's really hard to admit. But when we can admit that, then we start to be able to surrender our own self-sufficiencies. That, like Jesus tells them in the boat, to let him be the one to guide them. This is where the rubber meets the road for us, I think, as Christians. That the work we do is the work of surrender, the work of really pressing in with Jesus, rather than leaning on our own understanding and self-will. That gets really tired. It's get really tiring after a while. So today, as we look to the Lenten season, I invite you to ask yourself and to pray in this way, asking the Lord, what is it that you want me to surrender? What part of my life am I relying on my own self-will or self-sufficiency? And how are you calling me to surrender that? And he'll show you, and just trust him in those places. Ask him to show you how to do this. We don't want to rely on the leaven of the Pharisees, on our own self-sufficiency. Rather, we want to rely on Jesus alone and surrender everything only to him.